Now, I don't know if you all have been seeing this, but Candace Owens has been absolutely destroying Kamala Harris.
Sporting my fro. Summer of 1970. But basically, you just know when you go through this that they essentially sat down as a team and were like, we're creating the legend. We need you to be black. Okay, this was published again in 2019. And they're like, we need that black vote. Let's make it easy. Give me the blackest photos of you that you can possibly find.
And now, because she offended Janet Jackson after Janet Jackson made some statements based on Kamala's ethnicity, Candace said, and for Janet Jackson, I inherit the beef. She was going in and hasn't stopped. It's been relentless.
I am absolutely giddy today, you guys. I did it. I spoke to Kamala's uncle officially. Wow. And by the way, he's a gem. 10 out of 10. I really wish that he was running for president instead of her because he comes across as a very honest man. I'm going to tell you all about that conversation and how it's now led me to many more questions. So many more questions that I have about Kamala and her true heritage. Also, she's once again been asked about her racial identity. This happened just 3 days ago. And suddenly she's a little iffy on the answer. Kamala and me are now in a very particular kind of relationship. I'm like Maury and she's essentially my guest.
Candace is now the host of the Maury Show. She's trying to find out who the father is. Yeah. But, this would be a very simple situation. If you have a murky history, you should be able to just say that or just come out and say the facts. But it's always some kind of little cagey response. Anyway, this is Candace.
I'm asking her a question. Kamala, during your run as president, we asked you if your genealogy was actually Irish Indian.
You said no. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Oh! Welcome back to Candace.
Candace Owens is referring to the All the Smoke interview with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. A podcast, kind of softball interview. A safe space, if you will. And they weren't going to challenge anything she had to say. But of all the places she's been dodging interviews, she pulls up to Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson.
I want you to pay very close attention to her answer here. Take a listen.
What do you think when you hear people kind of questioning just the fabric of who you are?
Well, one, I don't listen to it.
Okay.
I'm really clear about who I am, and if anybody else is not, they need to.
You always got to do that cackle. I wonder if that's just a nervous tick at this point. It's just so out of nowhere.
To go through their own level of therapy. That's not my issue.
Their issues, right?
My mother was very clear. She was raising two black girls to be two proud black women. And that was never a question. It's funny because over the years, journalists, some, not most, will want to talk about it. And I say, okay, if you want to have this conversation, I'm prepared to have it, but sit down and get comfortable for a few hours. If you want to start talking about race in America, you want to talk about the 1/8 rule?
A drop.
Right.
We're really talking about race in Jamaica. If you want to be honest, Candace is focused on the Jamaican relatives, which, always, I've mentioned it in previous videos. Like, if I was to run for president, there would be so many of my cousins just coming out of the woodworks, especially my Jamaican cousins, if I had any Jamaican cousins. They would be waving the flag at the parade. Kamala, big up to Kamala. Or whatever. However, that's a bad accent.
You want to talk about what it means in terms of who you are perceived to be and the impact that can have on the rest of your life, regardless of who you actually are in terms of your God-given capacity and the rights that you have and should have. So, I don't mess with that. I think that's other people trying to figure some stuff out that and they
got some issues.
They got to deal with it.
Wow.
So she just doesn't answer the question at all. Right. So before we had her really leaning into being black. Now all of a sudden she doesn't even mess with that. I don't mess with that. I don't even mess with that. They need to go to therapy. She's pulling this Freudian technique. Obviously, I've spoken to you about Freud, who was a disgusting human being who essentially gaslit women who were actually being abused by their fathers. So what she's doing is this exact same Freudian technique of gaslighting people by being like, actually, you need therapy. The problem is you. The problem is actually you for asking the question.
Is she gaslighting the whole country? Is that what's going on here? Definitely the black community. Because some of these responses, people are voting specifically on that issue. They're like, this is a black woman. This will be the first black woman. And if it turns out that she's not as black as you think she is, does that change your mind? Does that, inform your decision in any way?
We're asking the question because you made this a theme in your bookie book, which we're going to get to in a little bit, okay? So you don't get to now just not address the question whatsoever. Put yourself in her shoes, okay? I'm going to put myself in her shoes. I'm running for president of the United States, okay?
Okay.
And these questions keep popping up about whether or not I am black. Do you know how simple it would be to simply answer the question? List your black relatives in 4 seconds. I would be like, this is my grandma, this is my grandpa. Suddenly she's a little iffy on the details here. Why didn't she just say, yes, obviously my grandmother is Beryl. Here's a picture of her. She's black. I'm disgusted with the people that are even calling this into question. Here's my great grandmother, Iris Finnegan. I am obviously black. Instead, she goes, oh, do you really want to talk about it? That's what I say to these shows. Do you really want to talk about race? Do you really want to talk about the 1/8?
How about yes? Yes, we do, actually.
Rule? I mean, how dare she? And the answer is yes, Kamala. Actually, I would like to talk about it. Yeah, I'm actually totally up for talking about the 1-drop rule, the 1/8 rule. Let's discuss history.
Let's talk about the 1/8 rule. Forgive me for using Wikipedia, but the 1-drop rule was a legal principle of racial classification that was prominent in the 20th century United States. It asserted that any person with even one ancestor of black ancestry, 1 drop of black blood, is considered black, Negro, or colored in historical terms. It is an example of hypodescent, the automatic assignment of children of a mixed union between different socioeconomic or ethnic groups to the group with the lower status, regardless of proportion of ancestry in different groups. What they're saying, in essence, is Kamala with 1 Indian parent and 1 Jamaican parent, which he doesn't specify on the birth certificate, her father, Donald, that he is also of mixed ancestry. So at best, Kamala is probably coming in at a quarter black, maybe. That's really pushing it, because what Candace is discovering is that Donald's background is even a little more different than even Kamala may know. There's a lot more Irish ancestry. There's a lot more potentially Indian ancestry on that side. So by saying that you're half Jamaican makes you think that you're a half black person. But is that really the case here? And why is it that every time we have a black presidential candidate, they have to be of mixed ancestry? Makes you think. Looking at you, Barack Obama. But let's move on to talk about what we came here for. Candace's conversation with Kamala's actual uncle.
At some point in society, we have to come together to declare this unacceptable. Like, I don't care where you sit on the spectrum. This is the most not okay thing that I have ever seen in the history of politics. This is how she's shoring up black votes. She's going around talking about collard greens, putting in fake pictures of her uncles and aunties that are black, while conveniently ignoring all of her aunties and uncles that are white.
Real quick, it's very funny, the whole collard greens piece. Like, because, you know, these are all black markers. As if you know how to cook collard greens.
They said, no, there are clips of her speaking about collard greens. I said, I cannot believe this. Produce me the clip.
Collard.
And they did. Here it is.
I have a friend who had a Christmas party, Christmas Eve every year, and she asked me to make the greens for a party every year. And I am not lying to you that I would make so many greens that I'd need to wash them in the bathtub. I'm telling you the truth.
So how do you make your greens? Do you put turkey in them? Do you
Bacon.
Nice.
But bacon? Oh, this guy's so excited.
I do.
In the nasty tub. Think about that. Who does that? Even if you get a tub spotless, if you get a tub to the perfection of sanitization, is it going to be clean enough to cook or wash food in? That is what we're asking here. And it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous claim. It's a ridiculous story. I think she needs to stop telling it, because that does not prove anything. But I guess the idea of collard greens and, you know, kind of like the Hillary Clinton with the hot sauce in her bag. Is it working? Is it working? That's all she want to know is it working?
Bacon. Garlic.
This guy's so happy
white
for bacon.
vinegar. I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. But no, first I chop up the bacon and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic, some chili peppers.
Okay.
and then a lot of water and so a little chicken stock, and I let it go for a while before I put the greens in.
Don't you have something presidential to do, or at least vice presidential? Sit up here explaining your collard greens. There's something else that came out today. What happens when Kamala Harris loses her teleprompter? When she is not able to read off the screen the words that she has to say? Is she going to know what to say?
Remember his number, 32. Today we got 32 days until the election.
Yay! That's scary. Teleprompter went off.
32 days. 32 days. Okay, we got some business to do. All right.
Okay. All right.
32 days.
Oh my
and
God.
we know we will do it. And this is going to be a very tight race until the very end. This is going to be a very tight race.
She freestyling her year.
We are the underdog, and we know we have some hard work ahead.
The look of when the teleprompter goes out is right here. Ooh, you see her bite her lip. Are we really doing this? Come on, man. What you gonna do when you're in a room with a foreign leader and they ain't got no teleprompter? This is what we're saying here. This is why there's a problem. This is why there's resistance. We gotta be kidding here. Y'all gotta be kidding. I don't know. Anyway, let me go back to what I was doing. I'm sorry. Take it away, Candace. I'm sorry. Take it away.
Let me find her. I'm going to haunt her. I promise you that. But of course, guys, let's get to me speaking to her uncle, because that actually happened. Like I promised you yesterday. I said I had a phone call. I was trying to wait for it to happen yesterday. Well, it happened last night. Part one of our phone call happened last night. We briefly spoke on the phone, I would say for about 10 minutes. And I first want to say just how much I liked this guy. I just had a feel like, okay, I'll be honest. I have a Caribbean bias. My former producer made it very clear to me that I have a Caribbean bias. He wanted to reach out because he cares so much about Vioris, and he doesn't want whatever is going on with Kamala to make people have this perception of Vioris.
So if y'all haven't been paying attention to the story, Vioris is allegedly a relative of Kamala Harris, possibly her grandmother. And she's lived her life in Florida. So this is actually a white Irish woman who married Donald Harris, Donald Harris's father, Oscar Harris, in 1952. So that would be potentially Kamala Harris's grandmother. You get where we're going, where Candace was going with this? This lady kind of looks like Kamala in a lot of ways. So Vioris actually could be the real grandmother. It's possible. Yeah, there's even some people were pointing out some similarities around the hairline, the facial structure, for sure. Huge. And Candace Owens broke all this. Like nobody bothered to do any fact checking on Kamala Harris's book, which obviously now has some other things in it. Like a black grandmother that was listed there, but apparently she's not even a relative, allegedly.
And I told him right away that it was never my intention for him to get inundated. So I want to be clear. My understanding is that it's the press calling, but I want to make sure that there are no Candace Owens viewers that are going out there calling any of these relatives that are still alive, because we can find information online, but we definitely should not be harassing her relatives who have nothing to do with her running, and in many cases don't even agree with her politics. Anyways, I just said to him, look, we're just trying to get questions answered about Kamala's heritage because of her father's paper. I said, I have a lot of questions about your brother, Donald Harris. I just am not understanding anything in this paper. And I went through the holes in it. I went through the fact that, he mentions this person growing up, like they all kind of grew up on a farm together, but you're asking the question, like Beryl married this person. Why is he trying to make it seem like everyone grew up as one happy family? Why didn't he even mention Vioris at all, which is kind of the dog that didn't bark? And I asked him directly if he knew the Miss Iris that he is referring to in this book.
Okay, this is supposedly Kamala Harris as a baby on this lady's lap, who is, elderly in age, but also shares a striking resemblance to another lady that she featured in her book that she was saying was her grandmother. So she's saying this is her great-grandmother, Iris Finnegan, which Finnegan is an Irish name, obviously, in Jamaica. Also, the picture's in black and white. This was back in the day, so but you can kind of tell there's a difference in complexion, obviously.
The Miss Iris that Donald J. Harris is referring to in his piece, rather, who he says is Iris Ney Finnegan. Again, very strange, because Iris should have never been Ney Finnegan. Finnegan was her married name. And he said, I can't answer that. I don't know that name. I want to be very clear. He has a relationship with Donald. He is close with Donald. They grew up together. He considers Donald his full brother. He has no idea who Miss Iris Finnegan is. This is Donald's brother that we're talking about. So I said, okay, that's, of course, of some interest to me. I asked him why it is that he's even then mentioning this Miss Iris. And he told me that he wanted to clarify something which was of most importance to me. He wanted me to know that before Vioris and Oscar Harris got married, Oscar Harris already had 3 children, okay? Wow. One of them being Donald. Now, to be clear, he is younger than Donald, a lot younger than Donald, so he wouldn't know much about if there was some family secret. He would not be aware of it, but to the best of his knowledge, like, this is what he was told, that they had 3 children before Vioris and Oscar got married.
Yeah, and that is the thing in Black families. There are a lot of secrets that happened back in the days, the 1940s, the 1920s. Somebody is raised up as sisters, and then they find out one day that was their mother. There's a lot of that happening. But what Candace is getting to and what she's alluding to is the simple fact that what Kamala's telling us isn't the full story. And there's a reason for that. This is her only link to Blackness. You understand? So if it isn't necessarily all the most Black, it's not Howard University and the sorority. It takes away that from her. It takes away that base of support from her. In some ways. I think some Black people are already onto it, though. And
I asked him, quite frankly, if he knew or heard of Beryl. He told me he does not know Beryl.
Which some people pointed out the similarity in this lady, who Kamala is obviously a full-grown woman, but Beryl, apparently, the woman that they found in the records, would have died a couple years before Kamala was born or after she was born, one or the other. But either way, she wouldn't have been a full adult in a picture with Beryl. But she is there. And this is from her book. It says, visiting my paternal grandmother, Beryl, in Jamaica. So people were saying this picture looks like a younger version of this woman. You see what I'm saying? The great-grandmother, Iris. Now, families do look alike, but is that really the case? Is this AI? Who knows?
Instant red flag to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you not know? If you have a half sibling that you are close to and have been close to your whole life, how do you not know who their mom is? He said, I don't know who his mother is. You don't know who Donald Harris's mom is. The woman who started this entire thing, Beryl Finnegan, like the person who just flagged me as weird, something is not right here. We now know that Donald Harris's brother does not know him, okay? Like I said, he said that Oscar Harris had 3 children before he married Vioris. He mentioned that Donald was very close to them. He also said that Oscar Harris's children all had businesses, that Donald, when he was coming up, Donald was in university. They kept very close to him. He said that Donald has always been very, very private. And he doesn't like publicity.
Obviously.
And I find that to be very interesting. What people, yeah, sure. There are some people who are exceedingly private.
Ironic, his daughter runs for president then. I don't know. I guess you can't control that, but it's like too extreme. Just like, I like to be private. Because it would be interesting right now to actually hear from her parent that is still alive. There's a reason, we don't know what it is, but that whole side of the family has been very quiet. So it's very unique. It's odd that Candace gets to speak to her uncle. That's why this is rare.
And there are some people who are exceedingly private because they have something to hide. And I, again, do not feel that Donald Harris was telling the truth about his upbringing. I think he gave some truths and kind of made it very murky in his Jamaican heritage piece, but some things that were objectively proven to be untrue. He told me that Kamala definitively knows Vioris, that he also knows her, that she visited Jamaica twice with her father, and that sometime after she had graduated college, she went down to Florida with her sister and she visited Vioris. So she had a relationship with Vioris. Unfortunately, Vioris did not make her book. And I think we know why Vioris did not make her book. Now, I have no reason not to believe the person that I spoke to. I just felt that he was being very authentic and he was there to simply clarify some things and that he didn't know the answers to some things. He authentically didn't know. And if he is telling me something that is not correct, then the reason why those things are not correct is not because he's trying to lie, but it's because he is not aware of them. Mm-hmm. So it leads us again to more questions about Donald Harris. Who is this guy? Who is his mother? Where is Beryl? Okay. Where is Iris Finnegan? Why won't Kamala, who felt so, I guess, close enough to Beryl and Iris to include them in their book, why won't she even mention them as an easy way to debunk what is being said? Why is she even mentioning the 1/8 rule? What are you talking about, Kamala?
Yeah, I think she told on herself with that statement. She told on herself that she have one drop of black blood, and is that enough? Is that the end of the discussion? Especially in this climate where we're talking about so much lineage and the importance of lineage. It's interesting.
If you're telling us that your grandmother is Beryl, she looks pretty black to us, like that would make you more than 1/8 black. What's going on here? Why are we getting all iffy on the details?
Candace is getting to the bottom of Kamala, all due to Janet Jackson. So this is Candace's new mission to get to the bottom of Kamala's black history, her unique black history, her ancestors. I think it's a worthy cause, especially if she's running for the highest office in the land. Because as I said, there are a lot of people that are stuck on identity and the reason for picking Kamala as their voter. They say she's a black woman. She'd be the first black woman to do this. If she's not black, does that impact your vote or your decision making? Because